Hi, I'm Evalene, and I did this project with Dr. Sutliff, and I'm here to talk to you about the #1 cause of death worldwide. And what I might tell you today might save your life. So, a little bit more about me. I'm a respiratory care major. I'm graduating the program this year, and part of the program is clinical hours in the hospital. And so far, I've clocked about 500 hours in the intensive care unit. I got the privilege of doing my rotation at Anaheim Regional Medical Center, which is a cardiac specialty hospital that does open hearts and heart repairs. So, main causes of death worldwide. Number 2 is at 11% strokes. Number 1 is heart disease with 16%. Heart disease is currently the most rapidly increasing disease, with the numbers trending upwards and increasing every year. And that's pretty consistent in the United States as well, as 1 in 4 deaths in the United States are due to heart disease. That accounts for about 600,000 deaths annually, and the numbers are continuing to increase. I see 4 rows of tables here. Statistically speaking, 1 row of you will die from heart disease. But what do these 2 diseases have in common? Well, they both have to do with a lack of oxygen to the body, but how does that affect the body? Your tissues die. So, stroke is where a part of the brain is injured because of the deprivation of oxygen. And the possible aftermath, even after treatment, includes facial paralysis, difficulty with everyday activities, including eating, writing, brushing your teeth, and even walking. So, hemiparesis is where half of your body is paralyzed on one side, and this is actually something that a family member of mine suffers from, and also even death. So heart disease is defined as disease to the heart or the vessels, and the heart is the center of circulation, therefore a failing heart is a failed body system. So if your heart fails, this happens throughout all your organs, and that leads to multi-organ failure and subsequently death. So, across the board, heart disease is the top cause of death amongst all races between both males and females. And also strokes are within the top 4 as well, with the exception of the white population. So it affects a lot of people. Now, these 2 diseases combined are responsible for about 27% of the deaths globally. So it's pretty significant. But what if I told you that these 2 diseases have 2 common culprits? Cholesterol and blood pressure. So cholesterol is the fatty plaque that you can see here in orange building in your vessels. And a buildup in the vessel causes these are red blood cells right here, they get stopped by the narrowing, and that creates a clot. If that clot dislodges in the neck, in your carotid arteries, then that leads to the first type of stroke, which is an ischemic stroke. The second, if this clot dislodges in your heart, however, that could lead to a heart attack or your heart stopping. Now, high blood pressure is a result of cholesterol, because the more cholesterol there is, the more narrow it becomes. The more narrow anything becomes, there's an increase in pressure and an increase in resistance. And chronically, that causes strain. So that's a lot of strain on your heart muscles. And also your vessels thin. So here you can see this is the numbers of blood pressure. As the numbers increases, this bulges out. And it looks like it's growing, but it's actually stretching. The more something stretches, the more likely it is for the vessel to burst. And if your vessel bursts within your head, and that causes a second type of stroke, which is a hemorrhagic stroke. And you may also know that as an aneurysm. And this is an actual image of the cholesterol building within the wall of the vessel. So this shows you why it's actually not that simple to just remove the clot. So the second thing I want to talk about is congestive heart failure. This is due to a lot of strain on the heart. So this right here is your heart, and that's a normal heart size shown in the X-ray. This right here is a heart with cardiomegaly, which is a side effect of congestive heart failure. So this is associated with obesity, and as you grow, your heart actually doesn't grow, but it stretches. And as it stretches, it doesn't exactly grow, but the muscles thin, and it loses its retention and its integrity. So this is irreversible. And how that works is, well, as your heart fails, it doesn't pump effectively anymore. It's kind of like this bucket right here, and then your blood returns back into your heart, but the heart doesn't push out effectively, so the heart becomes overloaded and overwhelmed. So the first medical intervention that we could try is a stent. So a stent is this metal mesh right here that's placed in either a neck artery or your brain artery, or the neck artery or the heart artery, and it's implanted with metal mesh. And it's considered a minimally invasive non-surgical procedure because they actually make an incision in your thigh, and then they feed the catheter all the way up to your neck or your heart, and then they inflate the balloon and they leave the stent right there. So this improves circulation by keeping it open. However, this does nothing to fix the problem because the problem is the cholesterol buildup here. And it does not prevent any future fatty plaque formations because, as you can see, the cholesterol still remains in the vessel. And if there is more plaque formation in another vessel, then this stent does nothing to prevent that. So the second one is open heart surgery. There's two types. The first one is a heart valve repair or replacement. So your valves are this white gauge right here, as you can see. And once again, due to a lot of stress, there's strain on those, and they will need to be repaired or replaced. And you might hear people say, oh, I have a fork or a cow implant. But what most people don't know is that it's actually a 10-year, you have to get it replaced every 10 years. So every 10 years you would have to undergo open heart surgery. Second one is more invasive and more taxing is the coronary artery bypass graft, also known as a cabbage. So this is where they actually harvest and remove a vessel from your leg right here in the ground. And they bypass the blocked arteries, the blockage here, this is your heart artery, so that your heart can still feed its own muscle. And what people don't know about open heart surgery and why it's so expensive is because your heart actually stops during the surgery. All the blood is drained out and stops so that the surgeon can stitch and make cuts. But while your heart is drained out, it's drained out to this machine which sustains your perfusion for you, and it temporarily substitute your heart during the repair. So outcome statistics, there's 400,000 stents in the United States done a year. One-year mortality rate of 24%, meaning within 1 year 24% will die, and that number creeps up to 36% with long-term follow-up. So what that means is for those that do not continue to follow up consistently with their doctor, there is a high mortality rate. Now the coronary artery bypass graft, cabbage, 600,000 surgeries done per year, even more common. 2% death rate operatively, 2% will die on the table. About 6% will die within 30 days. However, the interesting statistic is that within 10 years, over half will die. 65% of those deaths are due to heart disease. So, I wanted to talk about heart failure. So, a common misconception of heart failure is that these interventions, let's say you're here and you have a stent, these interventions don't restore you back here. Heart failure is a downward slope and a symptom slope. What you need to do is make changes. If you have heart failure or stent or TED, if you want to live longer, you have to make changes either through dieting, exercise, or taking medication. But hindsight is 2020. What does that mean? What can we learn from these statistics and what can we change? Well, the purpose of my study here to you is to show you how heart disease forms and how it progresses and the impacts of cholesterol and blood pressure. See how important it is and why we need to make changes. So the first thing, let's look at it from a retrospective perspective. These are the main factors of heart disease, and most of them can be remedied through diet. And an interesting statistic about exercise is that it lowers your stress and also it lowers your bad cholesterol and increases your good cholesterol. I've been told that by my doctor before, but I have no idea what it means. So let me tell you. Bad cholesterol carries the cholesterol to your bodies and clogs up your vessels, while the good cholesterol carries it out from your vessels to get excreted and filtered. So how do you know which one's the bad one with LDL and HDL? A way that I remember is that LDL is the bad one because you don't want to take the L. And how do you know your levels of LDL and HDL? Well, it would be the annual blood test, and that will be a direct monitoring method. And the fourth most important thing is to follow your doctor's advice. If you have a tendency to clot, please take your medication because they tell you to put more exercise into your life than you should, and also to avoid certain foods. So if you're still doubtful about what lifestyle affects you, the lowest population with heart disease is here in the Amazon. It's actually an Amazonian tribe. However, the more interesting one is the lowest incidence of deaths by heart disease, especially Japan. So this is a population that does have heart disease, but the lowest amount of death from heart disease. Why is that? Well, the Amazonian tribe, they have a pretty natural diet. They have no processed foods, no processed sugars and fatty foods, and they live a relatively active lifestyle. However, the Japanese, the government put regulations on smoking, making it harder for them to buy cigarettes. They incorporate exercises in their daily life by building a transit system, and they build a good healthcare system and encourage them to visit their doctor often. And what makes the biggest difference with the healthcare system is if there is an issue, it was detected, diagnosed, and treated early on. So this is my blood type to show you. I know it's not fun to get your blood drawn, but I wanted to show you what we can actually find. So in the CBC, we can find if you have a high clotting factor. In the lipid panel, we'll see your HDLs and your LDLs, so your cholesterol levels. And sodium might be a cause of high blood pressure. And BNP is actually something we can determine if your heart is working hard and if you are headed towards heart failure. And troponin is something that we can actually decide if you've had a heart attack. So conclusion, heart disease and failure is more common than you think. Physical damage is irreversible, but it's much easier to prevent than fix. It's very important to listen to your doctor, and I hope what you take away from my presentation today is not just for yourself, but to advocate for your family and your loved ones. And it's really important to go see the annual checkup and blood test, and that throughout my research, I have concluded that although genetics are a proponent in heart disease, environmental factors are the determinants of mortality.